Hi, my name is Farrah. I work at Stackery and I am the Ecosystems Director. I'm going to just start this off by telling everybody I'm very nervous. I'm very grateful and honored to be here. So we're going to talk to you about what a serverless state of mind is, and I think that everybody here has probably heard a lot about serverless architectures and things, and I believe that Jared spoke this morning about having a serverless mindset. And so I thought it'd be, I'm going to talk to you about what a serverless mindset means to me. And to do that, we're going to have to go on a little bit of a journey. And so I will never forget my first experience on the internet. I really hadn't used computers really that much except for a typing class in high school. My dad was not an early adopter. In fact, it wasn't until my mom met my stepdad that I actually had like a real experience on the web. He worked at a company, or he owned a company called MicroAges Network, but in the back with a few other engineers, he was starting a company called Technology Solutions Network. And I was able to talk them into giving me a job researching executives and contacts for the vertical and horizontal markets. I will never forget the first day, like when I was sitting there at my desk with all these engineers and how like excited I was to be there. And they were like, they were talking about all these problems that they were solving with code, and my mind was actually blown. They also talked a lot about sitting in these hacker rooms, and they were looking for different like security infiltrations. And I remember asking them if they could break into somebody's email. And of course they said they could, and we actually did that once. So I've broken one time, but I don't actually recommend that. Anyhow, that day, I was really trying to get back to a page that I had previously been on, and I was clicking around, and all of a sudden I got this warning that popped up and said that I performed an illegal operation, and that it was going to shut down, and that we needed to contact the network administrator. I had no idea who the network administrator was. I was actually scared. What am I going to tell my stepdad? Like, I mean, was the network administrator? Is that the cops? Is it security? Like, who is it? Come to find out that the computer was just lost, had no idea what it was going to do, and so it shut itself down. I remember telling the story to a couple of friends and then being made fun of. And my instant thought was that maybe the computers probably weren't meant for me. I remember I hadn't really been good at math in high school. So fast forward to later in life, I am a single mom. I'm working at a healthcare, and I'm managing the relationship between us and the pharmacy benefit management company. But I would always find myself trying to be a part of any IT project I could, or any like engineering effort. And I was always trying to find out what was behind those like closed locked doors. Fast forward a little bit later, I then start working with HR leaders to actually implement, build, and design these benefit packages. But never did I actually love my job. And what was happening is I was becoming more lost, I was becoming more unhappy, and I was becoming more negative. And that negativity started to impact my personal life as well. So I decided there had to be something needed to change. And so when I moved up to Portland, Oregon, there was this vibrant, growing like startup community, and there's all these different startups popping up. And I remember thinking like, maybe I should try to get a job at one of these, and remembering how much I actually loved my job when I worked with my stepdad's company. And so I started applying, and I sent out, I don't know, 40, 50 resumes, and I maybe got a couple of responses, but I did not get an interview. So I decided I had to do something different, and so I volunteered for Tech Fest Northwest, which is a conference there. This was awesome because I was able to meet a mentor who found me a job in tech working at a startup, but it was only going to be 4 hours a week. I was able to meet Kara Swisher while there, and I remember her talking to me about like loving what you do and how sometimes you have to have a little faith. And she inspired me that day to take that leap, and I got that job working at that startup. Once I get there, it was really, really easy to find a ton of problems that needed to be solved. I was able to turn that into a full-time job even after I stopped a meeting and asked, who the hell is Cassandra and Jason? Nevertheless, they're not people. So multiple startups and experience eventually lead me to Stackery and also Serverless. And from the moment I got here, there was something different. As an early team, this team looked different. It looked different than any team I'd been on in previous, and it actually felt different too. Knowledge seemed to be shared freely and without gatekeeping. The community only seemed to prove further what I was seeing at my new job. Opinions were welcomed, not shut down. Everyone seemed to be asking questions and trying to learn, and there wasn't a lot of putting each other down. I decided my very first serverless event, I was like, maybe I can try to be a part of this hackathon. I was nervous about this, and because I'd been previously turned down to join a hackathon because I didn't have enough technical experience and there's prizes at stake. So I decided to join because I feel like there's no way to learn something better than to get down into the nitty gritty. And I stood outside of that conference or before that hackathon for about 15, 30 minutes, something like that. Like tearing up, I was crying and trying to get enough courage to walk through that door. But when I did, I was immediately welcomed, put on a team, and we built the next-gen serverless data intelligence platform. We actually won the grand prize, and each and every single one of us participated in order for us to get that prize. I have a love for code. There seems to be more and more tools that are available to me to learn how to build different things. Maybe I can serverless. If I don't need to understand networking, virtualization, load balancing, runtimes, application integration, data management, data centers, hypervisors, a lot of words that I don't understand what they do, maybe I could do. Maybe it's more inviting now. Maybe some barriers are removed. I came across a blog post, and it's from Ben Kehoe, and it said, "Serverless is a state of mind." It's about focus, and it's a trait. It's about it's a direction. It's not a destination. It's about removing distractions and delegating tasks. And I started to obsess about this, wondering if maybe I could be doing the same. It's not about how you make your decisions. It's not about your choices. I read this blog post again, realizing that actually I kind of do make some serverless choices. Once a week, I am viewing my goals. I'm also looking to see if new information or opportunities has shifted those goals. I also reflecting on my week and talking about, and I write down 2 places where I could learn more and 2 places where I feel like I'm excelling. I'm always looking for ways to outsource, to automate, and to eliminate tasks. I decided that I want to start to learn some of this, so I talked to the ladies in the office and I had them give me an overview of Git because following some of these tutorials, this has seemed to have been like one of the biggest learning curves that we had. I also knew that I was going to need to have some knowledge about the words and what the services were, what they actually did. And so I reached out to one of our customers and asked them if they wanted to be my accountability partner for getting our cloud certification. I wanted to make sure I had that down and that I wasn't going to be able to let that one go. Through many trials and errors, I decided that I was going to try to be able to read Google Sheets to start to try to automate some of my marketing tasks for emails. And I set out to do the OAuth refresh token, having no idea how hard that was going to be. And after a lot of trials and errors, I was able to get it to work. I then decided maybe I actually can follow along with our tutorials and build the Unicorn Wild Rides app. I used Lambda for the backend. I had API Gateway as the HTTP interface, DynamoDB, S3, Cognito for the user management. I got all of these things to work. I then decided I'm going to build my own webhook because I want to start to listen in for events off the internet to start to track to find some positive sentiment about Stackery. walking away from this, all I could think about is, what else? What else can I build? I decided that, we actually have to bug engineering a lot as a marketing team to try to run any A/B tests. And I wondered if maybe I could actually do something to help, eliminate that. So I set out to, I have an event that's going to trigger an email that will go to a user. And I actually built this out on my own without telling anybody. And I took it to the engineering team, super excited. And I'm like, can you guys take a look at this code? And they then told me that, oh, hey, by the way, we actually already have a fork event trigger that actually handles most of this, and it'd be a lot better if we could just implement that into that. So I was able to talk them into allowing me to add the third deploy tag, so we could send a email offering swag for anybody that's deployed 3 times in Stackery. And I actually, all I did is look at the syntax and I copied it. And I can now do this for multiple marketing tests, which is actually pretty awesome. And I have code in production. From there, I decided I actually want to build an app. So I reached out to one of the women at the office, and I asked her if she would help me to build one. She asked me then what I wanted to build. I had no idea. So we decided that we wanted to keep a couple themes. So we do have that serverless mindset. We focus on business value, so we wanted to make sure that it was something that would be useful to our company. We also knew that we wanted to build something that was helpful to a broader audience than just our current customers. We're always trying to think bigger. And we also knew that we wanted to include an inclusive theme, because that seems to have been an important, both of us have felt that inclusivity here in the serverless ecosystem and wanted to continue on. So we started thinking about doing like a positive Slack sentiment bot. But after a trip to Australia for AWS Community Day, I learned that so many people that I had no idea, their biggest challenge with adopting new technologies is documentation in a language that they can read and understand. I had never actually thought about that before. And I started to think about all these resources that had been available to me and how I was able to build all these different things to automate my task and to help myself level up. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went back to Danielle and I asked her, hey, can we build a language translator app and see if we could do something about StackRaise documentation and make those available for this user base. She happily agreed. So we then had to decide what technologies we're going to choose. So we have Stackery, we have Node, we have AWS Translate, AWS Lambda, and AWS S3. Here's a high level of the translation app that we built, and then I'll kind of go into a couple things that took us to get here. We have the original files and the function, and then we have our translated files. It's going to read the file from the original files, then the Lambda function will translate the text, and then it'll drop it into the translated files. One of my I should note that we actually did this in StackRaise UI, so I can just drag and drop different AWS services. And then what happens is if I toggle over to the template, all this YAML and CloudFormation is actually generated for me. And I actually really love this about some of the tooling that's available to these less technical or not engineers, because this acts as like my very own language translator. And without committing anything, I can actually see what is happening with the code, and I can actually start to learn how some of these services are integrating. Using tools like these, Stackery actually handles all the IAM permissionings, all the naming for development prod, all of that, so I didn't have to worry about any of that. What I did have, though, is once I committed it, I actually had my very first repo on StackRaise source control, and I actually have I have the most lines committed, and this was a huge moment for me. This is something that I could only do by editing documentation before, and having the engineers write out exactly how to do what and learning a little bit of Markdown. This felt awesome. So then we go to the AWS console, because now we have to deploy it. And I'm real excited when I see this review in progress. And then I'm real bummed when I find out that it failed. Because it's all this like momentum, I'm like waiting, I'm like, yes, and then it's like, no. Anyhow, I'm actually learning that this is actually like a fundamental part of development. This is actually seen to be universal and inclusive to newcomers, to new technologies, old technologies, whatever the language. What I'm learning is that if I want to be a developer day to day, that I'm going to be Googling errors one by one. This has been my experience. So back to it, we're going to go fix this function. So now I'm going to move into the Stackery CLI because I do not want to have any more of those failed deployments. And we have this watch flag, and so I can actually see if something's not working as I'm doing it. I begin to navigate the JSON object to drill down into the function, and I had translated text that was successful. Again, this was a huge, proud moment for me. We had to figure out that a lot of things were airing out. We found a bug in Stackery. It took me 2 days because I actually try to explore all the options before I take it to engineering and ask them for help. Turns out I wouldn't have been able to find that one or fix that one. AWS Translate only handles 5,000 bytes at a time, so that's about 2 paragraphs. So something was airing out because we had a full page, and I could not figure out what it was telling me because it didn't make any sense at all. What I'm learning though is I can serverless. I can keep climbing this service ladder. I can keep focusing on how I can provide value at work. I can keep focusing on how I can provide value in my personal and my professional life. Doing this though, I'm embracing a ton of uncertainty and change. And I'm scared. I'm scared to fail. But I remind myself and try to be positive that I can handle this. And I actually have a Slack bot that sends me messages like this throughout the day. If you haven't done that, it's such a good, if you're having a bad day and something like this pops up, it's just such a good motivator. I'm working to achieve that serverless mindset. And I'm excited. I'm excited that I can keep learning about how things work under the hood. I'm excited that I'm able to actually understand more and to talk to our customers and to the community about what serverless can enable. This is like my first foray of programming. I'm going to keep pushing this project. I'm going to keep pushing other projects. I think a lot about how, like Adrian Cockcroft has talked a lot about how AWS provides all these, like the building blocks for you to build. And that's what I've been doing. I've been building them. And how are you going to build a serverless mindset with all the blocks that AWS builds? You can impact your ecosystem and yourself in tons, in a majority of ways. And I will leave you with this, that you can do it. I believe in you. You can achieve a serverless mindset. And if this non-technical person can figure out how to build their own webhook, how to build their own application, the language translator, I can only imagine what it is that all of you could build. Please reach out to me. Tweet to me what you actually have, or anything that you build, or if you have any questions, and I'll be available to answer any questions. I had also to tell you, I did not realize that this session was an hour. I thought it was 30 minutes, and so I do apologize, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. Otherwise, we can just be out of here early. It's been a long day. Thank you.